When you are a highly sensitive being, there's so many things that you will come in contact with that you may witness people around you or people that you've worked at jobs with or people that you've gone to college with or people that you've grown up with or people that you have, joined groups with or whatever social setting you found yourself in. When people say highly sensitive, sometimes they conflate it with a person who is not in control or not on top of their emotions, because sometimes those particular worlds, they do overlap. Because before we have emotional intelligence, we tend to have emotions that are displayed for everyone. So it's not that everyone around you are not experiencing the same emotions or going through the same things. When you are emotionally unintelligent, I'll say that, those emotions tend to be at front and center. And to add to it, if you are a highly sensitive person, then your emotions tend to bubble up a lot more because there's so many outside factors that are constantly affecting and impacting your experience on a daily basis. So I can honestly say there's never been a moment in my life since I was very little, as far back as I could remember. And most of the time I can remember back to like 4 to 5 years old, 4 to 5 years old. There's some things that people talk about. And when I do the calculations, I was like 3 years old. So sometimes our memory can also, some of us just have good memory because I remember more than I should sometimes. I always feel that way. I was always very aware of my surroundings, aware of the people, aware of the energies, aware of how people felt at any given time, and tapped into reading the room. So as a kid, I can always remember that I was really good at walking in and reading the room and feeling like I belonged or feeling like it was something I wanted to do or be, or feeling like I should just shut up and sit in the corner and be quiet. Like I was always really good at that. Um, but something that I realized probably a long time ago, but just in this phase of my life, that I have always been highly sensitive to people, their energy, what they are attempting to be or do, or something like that. Well, over time, you'll see that having a disposition that's highly sensitive, it's not welcome in most environments because many people look at emotions and reactions to emotions and feelings and all that as some sort of a weakness or something that we should hide or something that we should always tuck away in most environments, right? It's like you walk in places, certain jobs, and people are like, of course, we all hate it here. Just shut up and do the work because we're all pretending. And you're kind of like, well, I can't really function like that, right? So you'll find yourself always being removed or removing yourself from many environments. But I think some people walk through life and they think that something is wrong with them per se because of that high sensitivity. But what's misunderstood about that is that you can't just be around and attached to anybody and anything. And when you learn that, the earlier you learn that, the better your life will be. When you are a highly sensitive person, you have to learn that you can't attach yourself or open yourself up to everything that's happening all the time, every day, in every moment. You have to even minimize the way people get to interact with you because everything puts pressure on you. Everything is exhausting to some degree. Everything brings anxiety. Everything can turn on a switch that you didn't want to be flipped, right? So something that I've been doing more recently just to sort of get myself away from things that provoke certain energies and emotions in me is blocking certain people out. And it's something that I don't like to do because it always feels like It feels mean. It feels mean, right? But sometimes people come from certain experiences that you've had, and they come from certain timelines that you no longer exist in anymore. And they're like a remnant, and they're like hanging around on the fringes of things. And I'll be quite honest with this one, because why not? It really doesn't matter. I was at an event with my daughters, and I have an ex-mother-in-law that shows up without provocation, I like, how did you even know this was happening? It's just, she's always there. And it's been nearly 20 years, and she's always there. And nothing from the past has ever been reconciled. Nothing has ever been addressed. Nothing has ever been validated. Nothing has ever been apologized for. Nothing has ever been said. But her thing is, let me show up and just be happy. And I've been letting it happen for a lot of years. A lot of years. But then I had this sort of revelation, almost like an epiphany. I was sitting at this event, and I looked over at my daughters, and I realized one of them is like a couple of weeks from being legal. And the other one is taller than her. And I was like, you're looking at this woman, she's constantly just talking, and she doesn't care about me or people. She doesn't know how to. She's just there. And I was like, I no longer want people like this in my space. I don't. So I took some real dedicated time and energy to write a very concise, I'll call it a manifesto, but it was literally a goodbye message. No maliciousness, no negative intent. I'm not trying to be mean. I don't want to go to dinner with you. Stop asking. I don't need gifts. What's really important to me, you can't offer. Authenticity, you don't have it. And so I was staring at her, and she was just like rambling about something, and I'm looking in her face the whole time, and I'm like, I'm done with this. Lady, we have had a good run. We've had a good run. But what I realize is that every time I'm in her presence or somebody like that, I'm like pushing down every bit of who I am, every bit of my emotions, every bit of my sensitivities, every bit of my thoughts, every bit of my authenticity, because I know that this person cannot handle who I am. They can't handle my honest responses to what they're talking about. They can't handle my honest reactions to what they're asking me to do or what they're trying to add to my life. And what that does to me, as being a highly sensitive person, it gets me all backed up. And then I'm bottled up. And then I have to take an entire day sometimes to recalibrate, to exhale, to revamp. And this is the thing. Sometimes people do not understand this, but sometimes they do. I can honestly say, I know that I'm a direct descendant of a very highly sensitive mother. But I always felt like she's never known how to disconnect from her surroundings and what other people need from her to give herself what she needs to function. I watched what this does to others, what it did to her, and I decided that it was not a lifestyle that I wanted. But I realized that as a woman and as a mother, there's a high expectation that I would take me, all of me, and put me on the back burner so that other people can feel comfortable and happy to be in my presence. But that is just not who I am. When you are highly intuitive and highly tapped in, and you feel rooms, you feel people, you feel environments before you even touch it. I know rooms that I don't want to be in before I even go to the places. It's not even about anxiety and social anxiety and all these sort of things. Sometimes people, when they invite me to do things or certain places, certain people, and I already have what I can't do locked and loaded because I know that there's a part of me that's going to be rubbed the wrong way or bothered when I try to be a part of whatever it is they're trying to get me to be a part of. But then there are other times when someone says something and when you want to do this or this, you want to be a part of this, and I don't even second think it. Sometimes we don't see this way of operating as a gift. We see it as a curse. We see it as a curse because it makes other people so uncomfortable. But it's truly a gift. It's a gift in so many instances and environments. There's been so many things. Even early on when I was married and I realized, I was like, this is never going to be a good marriage. And most people around me would have done it for 20 years. If the man was willing to stay, which he was, causing a ruckus, but willing to stay, they would have did it for 20 years and been worn out, beat up, intuition beat out of them, sensitivities beat out of them, happiness, joy, all that beat out of them. I watched this. I watched it with my own mother. And I was like, I'm not going to be one of them women. And then my daughters wouldn't like me because look what you've become. You're bitter. You're angry. You stayed in a negative situation too long, and you're too highly sensitive to do that kind of stuff. You live life fully. And anytime you have to be around people or places or things where you have to smush down too much of yourself to exist, it's not good for you. Mentally, spiritually, physically, all of those things. So I guess I say all this to say, if you find yourself you find that you are a highly sensitive person, there's nothing wrong with that. But what's important to know is how to manage yourself, how to manage your sensitivities, how to manage your life so that you can live fully. And so I sent that clear and concise message. This is what it is. This is the reasons why. I appreciate everything that has come before this, but I no longer want to be in a relationship with you on a personal level. And in historical signature fashion, it's completely ignored, but I know it wasn't ignored because for Mother's Day, I didn't hear anything. And I was like, yes. But I was like, there's never going to be an ounce of accountability, an ounce of validation, an ounce of apology, an ounce of nothing. And I respect myself as a being too much to let people like that linger in my light. It is not about maliciousness, and I even stated that too. But at the end of the day, like between us, she doesn't deserve to be in my light. People that sit in your dark moments, people that cheered on your dark moments because they thought it was going to benefit them in some kind of way. Don't get to just ignore what that did to you as a being and then stand in the light. No, thank you. I would love to be one of those surface level people who can walk around and just be perfectly fine with, oh yeah, this is okay, that's okay, this is okay, that's okay. But I've never been like that since I was a small child. Never. And I literally remember adults not liking me as a small child. When you're a small child, you know you have something when adults don't like you. You know you hold something when teachers just pick you out of the bunch. I was a quiet kid. I didn't even talk at school that much when I was in elementary and all that. And when they just accuse you of things, you know you're holding something. I remember vividly being a little kid and being excited that my oldest sister was coming home, and she had this little first husband she had. And when I was excited, she was coming up the stairs and I was jumping up and down because, I was a kid. I was always excited to see the siblings. I was the youngest. And he looked at me and like made a mean face and like rolled his eyes. I can picture it perfectly to this day. And like for the life of me, I kept it to myself, but I was like, why would he, what was that about? And like from that experience on, I've noticed it even with friends of my mother, different people, different places, especially teachers. And when you have that personality type that validates people's insecurities, you do not get a pass for anything in life. You will be the villain 99% of the time. You can do the same thing this person right next to you is doing, but because your energy is so strong, because your presence is so bright in some sort of way, and because your presence sort of validates what people feel insecure about inside of themselves without you even saying or doing anything, you will be the villain. I've seen it in every area of my life when it comes to interacting with other people. And you're looking around and thinking like, and I told my daughter this the other day, sometimes you get penalized for being strong because you can handle the weight of the environment. You can handle not being liked. You can you can take on the courage to walk in rooms and know that half the room despises you or whatever. It bothers people because they can't do it. And because they can't face their weaknesses and the things that they're not living out in their fullness, in their light, and they see you doing it, instead of embracing something beautiful, they want to eventually, at some point, crap on it. It's too uncomfortable. It's too uncomfortable to be around highly sensitive people who are intuitive and who are tapped in, and they don't even try. That's why many years ago, if you ask me, I didn't used to believe that people had any type of psychic abilities. I don't even know if I didn't believe it or if I just didn't tap into the proof of it. But now at this point in my life, I know that they do. I know that people come to this earth on a much higher frequency, tapped into something else than other people do. And I think a lot of times we dismiss it. Well, I did anyway, because I saw that in society, that mindset and those ways of being wasn't accepted. And so I was in environments and places, and people just think you're insane. They think you're insane because they're wondering, why do you feel so much? I feel so much because I am completely and utterly plugged in. I'm tapped in. So I say all this to say, and I think I said that already. If you are a highly sensitive person, You must become comfortable with your presence, validating other people's insecurities, being the villain, being ignored purposely, people looking over things that you've accomplished and done just because, people constantly trying to bring you back down to the level of other people, compare you to people that you're not even in the same atmosphere of in any kind of way. And what the worst part about it is that that level of gaslighting that people do towards people who are really tapped in is sometimes the person believes it. And that's what I feel like mental illness is for a lot of people, is when you just believe, okay, I'm doing too much. I feel too much. I am too much. I'm asking for too much. I want to experience too much. And if you smother that thing to fit in somebody's little preconceived boxes or places and stuff, you will experience mental illness. Your brain will get sick because it's nearly impossible for people who are highly intuitive and highly sensitive to just shrink themselves to fit into these small spaces. Anyway, I know that talk was all over the place, but enjoy your day.